So the question becomes to isolate the problem, be hard on the problem, be gentle with the person.
Well said. I really think that's great. Do you have a few more minutes to continue our discussion? I have a different question for you. A lot of safety professionals, from what I hear and what they say, really believe that business is the enemy, that it kind of circles back to what you were talking about in the beginning with the bad news that you were talking about. You've also presented good news of how to overcome that and different skills and things that you would want to utilize to be able to immerse yourself in. But is really business the enemy to safety professionals? I mean, they're used to hearing things all the time from business about, no, we can't do that. And we can't do that because of money, or that regulation doesn't apply to us, or anything along those lines. And I'm purposefully saying those comments because that's what I tend to hear the most of. And
Sure.
therefore, they draw a conclusion that business is the enemy. My personal feeling is that's not the case. But what are your thoughts from your perspective?
So I'll tell you a 30-second story. There was this jock, his name was Deion Sanders, basketball player and a great football player. And the Dallas Cowboys were trying to hire him.
Mm-hmm.
And Jones, the owner, he's a really flamboyant guy. And finally, he's going back and forth with Dion. And finally, he says, Dion, what will it take? 10 million, 15 million? And Dion said both. And he signed up for 25 million.
Perfect.
I think, James, that applies to business and safety. The fact is, you have to do both.
Mm.
It is simplistic to think that you will not have conflicting objectives. They always exist. I didn't start my career as a CEO, right?
Right.
There is one more risk that I didn't speak of, which is personal risk, which is you'll get fired.
Ah.
But the beautiful thing about safety is that there is something in all of us, a very basic human quality, that when push comes to shove, your leaders will always support a decent safety stand. And many of the things I've taken in my life, I never took permission, asked permission. I just freaking did it because it was a safe way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked for me. I mean, when you take your oil platform down for preventive maintenance, you're hemorrhaging money, you aren't making money, and you're spending money. And, the leadership will say, God, when the heck will this end? And now you say, I need 2 extra hours because the lagging on the electrical generator has to be replaced. And it wasn't on the original scope, and we can't do that while the operation's running. I mean, your leaders are going to go crazy, right? There's a certain level of personal risk one has to take when one has conflicting objectives. My view on that is don't get permission. Just freaking do it. Let them stop you. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, no one will stop you. At least that's been my experience.
I have to say it's been mine as well. So maybe in different industries, different profession, but I have found that to be very true, very true. And it's done not from a malicious standpoint or I'm going to get back at you, almost a revenge standpoint. What we're talking about is something that is beneficial to what's going on within the organization.
Absolutely.
And working within that component of it. So therefore, then you're very right. I find that, okay, you're doing a great job with that. Keep moving it forward.
James, your license to operate as a businessman, as a CEO,
Mm-hmm.
is threatened when your operations don't have legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And a pattern of running unsafe operations makes you lose your legitimacy. And then sooner or later, the external stakeholders, either be regulators, citizens groups, something or the other, will stop you. The second thing you're going for you as a safety professional is all leaders. I mean, you can only be a leader if you have a following, right? Otherwise,
Right.
you're not leading, right? So at your core, if there are people who are following what you're doing, you have a residual mantle of responsibility to take care of them. So once you get beyond the bluster of the leader who's trying to stop you from doing things safely, they normally won't press it.
Right. Good deal. This has been a great conversation, Anil. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Really, truly, this, I think a lot of people who are going to watch this are going to get a lot from this. I think the perspective is very realistic, very real world, and it gets beyond what we've been taught as safety professionals all the way through. I think it puts a real traction here. So I greatly appreciate your, as you say, nuggets of knowledge, but I do appreciate it very much. So
Yeah, let me close by saying the need for resilience.
mm-hmm.
You work every day, every week, every year, and it's very easy in the face of adversity to say I'm picking up my marbles and going home. Not
Mm-hmm.
really, but checking out.
Right.
Don't try and make yourself bigger than allowing that to happen. And so that's very well said. Well, how the heck do you do that? You do that by looking at the problem, by framing the problem in language that will help you solve it. If you name the problem as someone's fault, then obviously the person who can solve it is the person who's at fault. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's not you, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So how the heck are you going to make that happen? It makes you subordinate to the problem. So in this sense, look at the underlying process. What caused Joe to screw up? Was it lack of training? What was it? If you look at the underlying process and the underlying cause, not only is it good problem solving in an incident, it puts in you a framework that helps you develop resilience. All right.
Very
I
nicely
wanted I
said.
wanted to put that in.
Thank you, Anil. I greatly appreciate your time today.
Sure, you bet.
Wonderful talk. Look forward to speaking with you again in the future too. And great. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks very much. Take
You
care.
bet. You too.